Hello everyone. This was a good week of chapters with the return of One Piece, as well as just overall being very good, even with it being a slightly delayed week, coming out on Monday instead of Sunday. So we'll be starting off with One Piece, chapter 1062, and this was a good chapter showing more about Vegapunk, explaining that the original Vegapunk decided to split himself into 6 distinct clones that are all more or less the same person. They're all Vegapunk, just different aspects of Vegapunk, and they're all geniuses so he can have more abilities and so on, so he can do more with his time. So we got to learn more about that, as well as see some of the different Vegapunks from the first Vegapunk, which is quote-unquote good, wanting to meet the other Straw Hats because he knows that they're extremely powerful and have some level of value. He wants to meet them. The one we saw last week, the girl, Lilith, is quote-unquote evil, as she's trying to plunder from the other pirates that enter and try to find funds for their various researches and mechanical dreams. We then meet another one in Luffy's group, Atlas, who's upset that it can't seemingly have enough budget and funding to make all of its wondrous things a reality, and it's also quote-unquote violent, and we see that there are other aspects of many of the other ones as well, each one having a core aspect and different names. So we see all of that. We also see that Bonnie very much fits in with Luffy's group of ridiculous antics, as she is about to reveal that she knows stuff about Sabo but holds it back, as well as explaining that Bartholomew Kuma is her dad, and she wanted answers for why Vegapunk would turn him into a soulless machine. So different plot points, different parts. Zoro seemingly wants to talk to Vegapunk for whatever reason, so there's a lot of intrigue going on here with the varying crew members' quote-unquote mission statements, as well as seeing the other Vegapunks. It then cuts to CP0, and we see Stussy, Lucci, and Kaku traveling seemingly to Egghead with a Seraphim Bartholomew Kuma for whatever reason, and apparently they're ordered to get rid of Vegapunk, which Lucci is seemingly questioning why they would do that, and the other two are telling him not to think, that they're all a bit too smart for that, which I thought was pretty interesting, as now it seems as though we are getting the rematch between Lucci and Luffy, which is extremely exciting. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. It was pretty great seeing the continued build up with Vegapunk as the arc ever becomes more interesting, with the fact that CP0 is now ordered to get rid of Vegapunk, now leading to an unexpected ally of a character we had long thought would be a villain to the Straw Hats. So a lot of intriguing things and intriguing developments, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here, with the fact that each group is separated, meeting different Vegapunks. It'll also be fun to see how Bonnie continues to integrate with the crew, and with any luck, probably join the crew, thus being the 11th member, I think. The final Straw Hat is ironically Bonnie, but that would be pretty fun, I think. She seemingly fits the crew pretty well, so I think she would be a welcome addition to the craziness. The other big exciting part is CP0's arrival, with Rob Lucci and Kaku and Stussy now being the major quote-unquote antagonists to this relatively minor arc. Adds kind of a weightier thing to see how much more Lucci as well as Luffy have grown. Is this going to be the same caliber fight as it was back in Water 7, or has Luffy far surpassed Lucci in strength, being now he is an emperor? So there's a lot of interesting things, and the hype is real for this rematch. So there's a lot of exciting things, and the next chapter should be even more exciting than this one, as it continues to be heavy on info dumping. These are very dense chapters, so a lot tends to happen in them. So now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 340, and this was a good chapter showing the continued training of Asta, as he has grown adequate with the new technique that he learned, Zeton, I think it was. And so the Shogun tells him the best way to improve from the basics is to do live combat, and so Asta fights Yami's little sister. It's not really going toe to toe, as all Asta can do is block, but he is able to block quite a few of her blows before eventually she overwhelms him and completely destroys him, landing a kick that seemingly would have completely knocked out anyone else, but Asta's pure grit on wanting to improve allows him to stand back up, ultimately to lose to her in the end, as the Shogun and the doctor are surprised by her brutality. She seemed shocked that he was able to stand up, and the Shogun even says that very few are able to do so, so this leads to Asta seemingly still having quite a bit of potential left to reach even higher heights, especially given this new technique of his. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the continued training of Asta, as well as to see that he is doing well in said training. Now, I do think it is very fun that we are looking at Asta's point of view and ignoring the Clover Kingdom for now. It will lead to a bigger surprise for us when Asta returns to see that the Clover Kingdom is in shambles and pretty much destroyed, and Asta has to try to save the day from that point. So it's interesting to see Asta's training and how far he's going to go from here. Is he truly going to elevate even further? That's the thing that we get to see with this whole arc, and it's very fun to see. It'll be interesting to see if any of these newfound allies of his here will make the journey with him, or if it'll just be him alone as they decide to take a more offhand approach to this whole thing. It'll be interesting, and the next few chapters should be pretty fun. So now we're on to Mission Yozakura Family, chapter 150, and this was a good chapter showing that the Operation Take Back the Family is on in earnest for the third time in a row, as Teo and Kengo go against Shinzo. We see mostly that fight as they duck from their open room to try to use the hallways, as Shinzo is too powerful for the two of them. As Kengo says, a direct hit would be basically it for them. They'd be done. So they have to try to find a way to trick and outmaneuver Shinzo, but it seems as though whatever brainwashing parasite Momo put into both him and Futaba have seemingly taken away their weaknesses to a degree. For example, Shinzo is seemingly very assertive and hardened to everything while still being the kind brother he is, but he doesn't seemingly have the same pseudo-cowardly persona he did before, as he's very clearly menacing here, as Kengo and Teo try to do their best to win, even injecting a quote-unquote cure for what they believed to be the parasite that's brainwashing them. However, it did not work. So they're now on to Operation 2, which is to simply brute force their way into winning against Shinzo and Futaba and getting them out of there, so that then the youngest brother can slowly get rid of the brainwashing them and returning them to normal. So now we have a major fight on our hands, as Shinzo is not going to let this stand, and Kengo and Teo will have to fight with every ounce of their being to win. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the battle between the three siblings, one in law, the other two actual siblings, and see just the battle itself. It was pretty interesting to see how they outmaneuvered one another, and ultimately now seeing that it's going to be a brute force slugfest between basically Teo and Shinzo, with Kengo trying to provide openings for Teo to take advantage. So the next few chapters should be pretty interesting, as we also see that the Futaba versus the eldest and youngest brother has already destroyed seemingly the dining room to a degree, as their battle is already quite underway. So it'll be interesting to see if they bounce back and forth between the two, or they focus solely on this Shinzo fight, but the battle should be fairly interesting to see the full might of the Yozakura family versing each other all out. Now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 130, and this was a great chapter showing the final stand of Juiz and Victor against the sun. We see more of the connection between Juiz and Victor, as Victor wants everyone to hide behind him, as he can't die, so there's no risk for him. As everyone continues to fight by their side, they keep losing people. people. And Victor seemingly very much starts to resent that and believes everyone's weak except for himself and Juiz to a degree. He wants to protect Juiz as much as he can, even building the armor, which is her helmet. There was a full set of armor, but she only keeps the helmet because Victor asks her to. We get to see all of that, as well as the fact that Juiz always believed in people and always wanted to build up great allies that she can put her faith into, as well as Victor's faith. They were seemingly very close, as many of the members of both Under and the Union were teaming up to fulfill different roles, from Unfeel, cooling down the cannon so that Undecrease can continue to fire the cannon, Unburn trying to make his way towards Juiz to make sure that she doesn't get burned by the sun, and so on. Many of them were working together to try to take down the sun, as she stabbed at the sun's chest with Rebellion, with Victor using Aegis to defend her. However, it seems as though using Rebellion was too much for her, as it ended up killing her. Either that or the sun's intense heat. Something killed her, and thus ends Juiz's reign as the Union leader and her life. She dies trying to defeat the sun, but ultimately her life was only worth about 3 minutes of stalling. So then we see Victor turn extremely angry, as he had believed this would be for the best, but ultimately he now realizes that's not true, as he is now filled with so much rage and hate that I don't know if he knows what to do with himself at this point. So it'll be very interesting to see what the next chapter provides, as this new revelation of Victor not liking the fact that Juiz is dead could change the balance of power a little bit here, as now the other Union and Under members might retreat or break rank or something, who knows. But we have to see what happens here, as we'll pretty much see Victor probably go toe-to-toe with the sun for a hot few minutes before Fuko disappears. But Fuko also reacts to this, as everyone does, in complete shock, seeing as how Juiz is now gone. So it'll be interesting to see what she's like in a loop without her knowing everything, what she originally was like in her first lifetime, in a manner of speaking. That should be pretty interesting to see, especially if she is still given the Unjustice Negator power. But for now, we will have to wait and see. But this is the end of Juiz's tenure in the Union. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. I thought it was pretty great seeing the final stand of Juiz, as she is able to deal a seemingly pretty devastating blow to the sun because they're all working together. Now the electrical cannon can fire multiple times, as well as seeing that Rebellion did seemingly stumble the sun a little bit as it was affected by the artifact, and we see that Aegis is able to block anything. So they'll need those two artifacts if they have any hopes of winning, but it'll end up needing to work out just as well as everyone working together. It should be interesting to see how they succeed in the end, but for now, this chapter was good in seeing and solidifying Juiz's leadership, I guess, as she never gave up hope, no matter how hopeless all of it seemingly felt for Victor after so long. We also get to see that Victor then finally realized sort of his mistake, in a manner of speaking, that he didn't really understand his feelings for Juiz, and now that she is dead, he's even more seemingly confused, as he had always believed this would be best, but now he is filled with such sadness and hate that he doesn't know what to do with himself. So we should see a very powerful Victor take down God, or at least stall him out for the remaining 3 minutes. So the next few chapters should be pretty good, as we're going to see the finishing touches on this loop before Fuko goes into the next one, having to deal with the sort of trauma of seeing all of her friends and allies fight tooth and nail just so that she can survive into the next loop. So the next few chapters and the next few arcs should be extremely interesting. Now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 127, and this was a good chapter showing the Blade Divine Visionary win against his opponent, and ultimately we find out that not even he can turn the key that Melodol was able to turn with a lot of strength training. So now they're very much in a pickle, as Melodol is still taking out the protesters while they can't figure out how to turn the key. It'll be very interesting to see what she does when she returns after having destroyed everyone, only to find that all of her hard work was undone because no one can turn the key but her. We also got to see that Lance and Dot were the first two to visit Doom's area, so I wonder what the hell the superstar divine missionary is doing. But they go toe-to-toe with Doom, ultimately losing in spectacular fashion, namely the fact that they pulled out all of their advanced magic only to be beaten down seemingly very quickly. So Doom is getting more aggravated, as it looks like he'll have to kill everyone while not even using his full strength. So that should be pretty interesting to see if anyone can kind of go toe-to-toe with him, or if they're all going to have to wait and hope that Mash can take out him and Innocent Zero. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the crew can't turn the key, which is rather funny, seeing that Mash is just so beat up that now they have to hope that either he can do it himself in his sleep or Melodol's return while they have to beat back the crowd, who knows, as well as seeing Doom's absolute dominance, though I don't think Lance and Dot are dead because no one dies here. It's a gag manga. But I do wonder who's going to step up and even stall Doom for any length of time. It'll be interesting, that's for certain, as the powered up Lance and Dot weren't able to do anything, just showing how powerful Doom is. It does make me wonder where the quote-unquote leader divine visionary is, though, as we haven't seen him at all, and I wonder if he's versing Innocent Zero or if he got lost and couldn't find Doom's area. It is very curious, though, the fact that Doom was not fighting anyone while everyone else was fighting the other brothers of Innocent Zero. So we'll have to see what next week provides in terms of that. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days chapter 90, and this was a good chapter showing the end of the teacher character as she is seemingly killed, as Akira is very sad by this and Sakamoto is no longer transformed, so she sees him and even is glad to see he's alive before ultimately dying. Then Sakamoto fights the director a little bit as they go back and forth, and it is revealed by the director that Akira's aunt that she's looking for, the classmate of Sakamoto, is dead because of slur. They say eliminated, so I'm not sure if she's actually dead or not, but it's implied that slur took care of her. So as the director is saying this, you can see it affects Akira, and Sakamoto tries to stop the director from saying it, when out of nowhere a spike goes through the director's camera and stabs him in the eye. We then see that the teacher was able to stand back up and deliver this seemingly fatal blow, though knowing this series it's probably not fatal, but it is a wound, especially in his eye and breaking his camera, is dealt by the teacher even though she is still dead, as he brings up that even beyond the grave she is still protecting her students. So she was able to do that on sort of instinct while still more or less dying here. So it seems as though her reason she became a teacher was because her and the janitor were in the same class at the JAA, and she did not join the order because her and the janitor were the only survivors of her class, and she wanted to change that because too many assassins were dying. So she did that by becoming a teacher, and that's why she turned on the order. That's how powerful she is, or was, back in her prime. So her landing a fatal blow there was within her power, especially as he was not expecting her to get back up, and the fact that she destroyed the camera was a nice touch. We also got to learn a little bit that the director is actually still technically in the order while he's on the side of Slur's men, as his whole reason for doing this is so that he makes a masterpiece of the JCC versing Slur, and he doesn't care who wins, he just wants to get all the footage for it from both perspectives, which makes him dumb. So we'll see if he survives. I don't know, maybe he did, and he was able to close his eye tight enough that it didn't pierce his brain, but he lost the eye. Could be something like that, but he is wounded, and so I imagine he'll be retreating, as even Sakamoto in his current state would be too much for a wounded director character. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good, and the next few chapters should be pretty interesting to see where this goes, if the director leaves, if he stays, if Sakamoto pursues him further, if he finally gets to talk to Akira, or if they're in a rush to try to go after the database to save the janitor's life. So that was all of the chapters. They were all very good, with One Piece and Undead Unluck standing out the most with their own unique brand of storytelling, one very jam-packed and the other one impactful. Also many other good chapters that were impactful for their own reasons as well, from Mashle having defeats and victories in the same chapter, both minor and major, or I guess both minor in a way, and Sakamoto having the teacher character be lost as the fighting for Sakamoto and the director is at a standstill, and Black Clover had a loss for Asta. So there were a lot of losing in this week's set of chapters, but they were all purposeful. So now we're on to everything else, and My Hero was fine, Jujutsu Kaisen was fine, and Blue Box was fine. The Elusive Samurai was pretty good, as we see that just like his master, the bodyguard of the main character seemingly gets his enjoyment out of tough fights and near-death situations, as he started to find it fun as he took a major blow from the main enemy general here. So we get to see more of that battle go on, as the enemy general will have his subordinates probably try to cheat, not through any knowledge of his own, as well as we get to see some of his background, of his staunch loyalty towards the main enemy general. P times 6 was good, as we get to see that the tutor of Lucky is trying to play in the fashion of the quote-unquote cocky brother so that he can fulfill a fantasy and kind of help Lucky in a way. It's weird. So it'll be very interesting to see how this battle goes, as the brother completely dismisses the notion of doing this for fun, as he wants to make this cutthroat for whatever reason, as he kind of wants to beat Lucky, and says there's nothing Lucky can do to attain whatever dream that he may or may not have. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen in the next battle, quote unquote, here. Super Smartphone was good, as we have the main character meeting with the main villain in a more or less public setting and seemingly planning to reveal his super smartphone to take down the major villain. Now, we'll see if the series continues from here. I could be very much wrong. I thought this one had a lot of life left to it, but given this chapter, we might be done next week, let alone in a few chapters. So we'll see. It's pretty interesting nonetheless, so I'm curious to see what avenue this is going to go. Either it's ending extremely soon, or it's got a little while left to go. Aliens Area is in a similar boat, as this chapter was pretty good, as well as the fact that this could end very quickly, or this could go a while. I'm not quite sure. This chapter could go either way. It could be the catalyst for the end, and it's ending very soon, or it could lead to longer things. But for now, it'll be interesting to see where this one goes as well, as those two are the most interesting in terms of, are they going to get cut short, or are they going to make it the distance, at least a fair distance into the future. And then Ginka and Luna was good, as it gives more fairy tale vibes of completing a mission despite the adversity, and more of the group starting to solidify. And a sort of twist at the end that Ginka seemingly had some sort of clone thing, save the people in this mission. It's weird, but the adventure is still going, so I'm very interested in seeing how this continues to grow. So that was all of the chapters. They were all very good. It was an enjoyable week overall, and it'll be interesting where a lot of these go from here. With so many of them moving in good directions, I wonder how long that will last. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.